and then I would be such a... No, it's for the video. It's not for you. It's for the video. Right, and yeah, if you can't hear me though, definitely let us know. So yeah, I never used to write these things down and then I would babble, so I'm gonna try not to babble. So welcome to our luncheon talk titled The Integration of the Humanities and Arts with Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine in Higher Education. This talk is part of a series of lectures funded by a grant from the Daniels Fund, as well as supported by the Division of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences here at Mines. Today, we are joined by two of the authors of the National Academy of Engineering's report about integrating the humanities and arts in STEM, but it's got two M's, because it's medicine, right? Right. Mathematics and medicine, right? So, ooh. Okay. In the original announcement for this event, I included a link to the report, but if that is completely fallen off your radar, I can resend, no problem. All right. So, Irene Ngun, yes, yay, is an associate program officer with the Board on Higher Education and Workforce, lots of acronyms, at the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. She also serves as research associate for the Committee on Women in Science, Engineering, and Medicine, which is a standing committee of the National Academies. Before joining the National Academies, she was a congressional intern for U.S. House on Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. She earned, yeah?
Yes, correct.
Okay, good. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. She earned her MA from Yonsei, okay, Graduate School of International Studies in Seoul, South Korea, where she developed her interest in science policy. She has a BA from Goshen College in biochemistry, molecular biology, and global economics. Yeah, right. Yay! Yeah, there's lots of things, a lot of cool things there. Dr. Laurie, I didn't even ask about you, Baefsky? Dang. All right. Is the Associate Dean for Research, Collaboration, and Innovation in the College of Arts and Media at CU Denver. The College of Arts and Media is one of the few public institutions nationally with programs and curricula that include 3D and digital animation, digital design, music business, singer and songwriting, recording arts, film and TV, and other areas that are central to contemporary creative industries. Dun, dun, dun. In this role, she supports and develops faculty and student research expertise, driving impact and success that cuts across these sectors. Dr. Baefsky holds a Doctor of Musical Arts degree in flute performance from Stony Brook in New York, earned a Master's of Music from the University of Michigan, and a Bachelor of Music in Flute Performance from Cal State Fullerton. Please join me in welcoming Irene Ngun and Laurie Baefsky. I did it. Yay! Oh, but now I have to do this.
Yeah. All right.
Handing off.
Okay. Put this in my pocket. I'm going to hold this. Let me see if I can do this. Can you hear me in the back, in the video? Just let me know if I need to. Okay, perfect. All right, thank you, Sandy, for having us, and thank you, Chin, but I think Chin stepped out. Okay, yeah, no worries. Excellent. Well, I'm really happy to be here. It's always a privilege to be able to talk about this report on behalf of the committee that authored this report. Just a little bit of background. I'm not an expert in integrative learning or integrative pedagogy, but I've been with this study since I started working for the National Academies. This study actually came about as a conversation back in 2015. The board director of the Higher Education and Workforce, the director of the Board on Higher Education and Workforce, Tom Rudin, and some of his colleagues and the members of the board were interested in this question of what are the benefits of integrative courses in the arts, humanities, and STEM. And that's double M, as Sandy mentioned. We wanted to make sure that we included medicine. So that's double STEM. So we started with a scoping meeting, and there was just a tremendous amount of interest in doing a national study on the topic. So we put together a committee of 22 members. Most of them are academics that work and live in this space, one of them being Laurie. And we also had 2 members of industry because we were also interested in figuring out what are the career outcomes of students that take integrative courses or are involved in integrative curriculum. So the study was funded by no surprises, Mellon Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the National Endowment for the Humanities. And one of the first tasks that we were challenged with was how to define integration. We used the word integration in the report, but a lot of the research literature actually uses different wording, different vocabulary. So this word integration encompasses the whole gamut of interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary education. So we were looking at a huge research landscape, but we agreed that while there might not be one definition of integration, this was what we wanted to focus the report on. So we define integration as integrative, as this right here. Integrative learning is the demonstrated ability to connect, apply, and or synthesize information coherently from disparate contexts and perspectives and make use of these new insights in multiple contexts. So it's kind of a, just remember that we were tasked with looking at a huge range of interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, and transdisciplinary courses and programs. One of the things that our committee of 22 members wanted to do was figure out how integrative courses were implemented and how they were being integrated. So we commissioned a paper that was written by Dr. Matthew Mayhew from Indiana University, and he was able to look at literally all types of research and categorize 3 levels of integration that is currently being implemented at universities across the US. And those are 3 levels. Integration can happen in course, so that's pretty self-explanatory, in course, and it occurs in both directions. So, you know, arts humanities being infused in an established STEM course or vice versa. Integration also happens within curriculum, so you might think of that as like a general education course where you have students take your math class and take your humanities class and take your other technical courses. So that's within curriculum integration, and then there are also co-curricular and extracurricular integrative activities. So you might think of that as like living learning communities. Those are examples of co-curricular integrative activities. Makerspaces also, faculty-run labs, those are other integrations. So we were able to categorize integration in all those 3 levels. And these are some further examples of what these courses look like. So environmental ethics at ASU is one example. Digital studies in the arts and humanities at the University of Maryland. Design cultures, creativity is one example from the University of Maryland. So in addition to this paper that looked at these levels of integration and how they were being implemented, we were also able to catalog more than 200 courses in the US that integrate arts, humanities, and STEM. And we put together this course compendium that's available online. We put out a questionnaire / survey that our committee members helped distribute to their network, and we were able to put together this pretty large course compendium. And it's a living document on our website, and we actually cite, I believe, two courses or programs from Colorado School of Mines. The one is humanitarian engineering, and the Connections program. And we were talking earlier, we weren't sure if the Connections one is still around or if it was titled something differently. But we would love to get more of these examples and put them up on the course compendium because we want to build on the 200 courses. So we wanted to pull out some, and I should say this, when we were looking for the research that could tell us what the educational outcomes are for integrative courses, most of the rigorous research that we were able to find came from the engineering education field. And so I'm just going to show you 2 examples here. This one study It was actually one of the studies from our committee members at Olin College of Engineering. And it was a study of, it was actually a control study. So he compared a course that infused history in a materials science class. So he compared the cohort that only studied materials science by itself, and he compared it to the course, he compared it to the students who who had the multidisciplinary course. And so he found several things. One, increased motivation and engagement in self-regulated learning, increased use of critical thinking skills, higher self-efficacy, and higher value placed on learning tasks. And he also found, I didn't include this because I was running out of space, but his findings also indicate that courses that infuse humanities also attract students, minority and women in the engineering course. So, but we wanted to find more studies that could say that, but the research was very limited. But Stoke and Martello's paper is a really good one. Another example of a study that we looked at was this paper that came out of Howard University. It was a capstone design course where they put students from 4 different disciplines that usually don't talk to each other. So they put mechanical engineering students, art students, business students, and I can't remember what the 4th one was. Did I say marketing? I can't remember. But 4 different disciplines all together, and they came together to solve a design problem that was provided by an industry partner. So that industry partner was there to provide this, problem. The students had to work in teams of, different disciplines, and they were able to measure some of the outcomes, and they saw improved communication skills, improved insight into practical aspects of workplace engineering, improved multidisciplinary teamwork, and improved employment opportunities. But this is the one of the very few studies that were actually able to empirically measure these educational outcomes. I'll skip this one. But so what we were able to do, and I encourage you to check out our report online. It's free to download. We have a great section in Chapter 6 that talks in more detail about some of the studies that we looked at, how those, what kind of assessments these courses used, and what the educational outcomes were. But these are some of the key learning outcomes that we were able to extract from these studies. And those are the ones that are outlined here, and they're in Table 6.1 of the report. So improved content mastery, improved ability to deconstruct complex concept, creative thinking, increased motivation, and engagement in learning, improved communication skills, and improved team dynamics. What we weren't able to do was find conclusive evidence that just because you take an integrative course means you'll get a job. We weren't able to find that direct link, but all of these educational outcomes, we know all of these educational outcomes are skills that employers value. And we know that from survey data, and I can't remember who exactly did that survey data, but it is included in this report of employers. And so the learning outcomes from these integrative courses overlap very well with skills that employers are looking for. So in addition to looking at the landscape of research in this field, we also were able to hear from experts and practitioners over the 2 years, and we asked them also about what were the barriers in implementing these courses, because obviously there's a lot of people who are interested in creating these innovative courses and sustaining them, but there are unfortunately institutional barriers. And so these were some of the things that we were able to learn from the experts. So bureaucratic challenges, an incentive challenge, budgetary challenge, and the one thing that I didn't mention here but I alluded to earlier was research challenge. It's hard. gathering the research and being able to say conclusively that integrative courses will lead to A, B, or C was hard because courses, faculty members who do the research or assess the courses, they are looking for different types of educational outcomes. But some of the bureaucratic challenges included these things: rigid professional identities, disciplinary structures, and organizational and bureaucratic arrangements. They tend to hinder people from collaboration. Universities tend to be very siloed, especially huge campuses. There's an incentive challenge. Folks, typically people who are on the promotion and tenure track are encouraged to do more research and publish, and so that takes away time from figuring out what is the most effective teaching approach, and it takes away from collaboration. So those are the types of institutional barriers that we heard. And we've heard a lot of these things have come up again and again as we go to different campuses to talk about this report. There's always the question of, well, how do we implement this program, and how do we sustain the funding for this program? If we get funding, for example, from a federal agency for 5 years, after that funding is gone, the program is gone. So there's a lot of challenges that this report elevates, acknowledges as challenges, but we don't know what the solution is just yet. So the key recommendations is to sustain, provide, and evaluate. Sustain ongoing integrative efforts that have shown promise, and that's a big challenge. Provide resources for the hiring, research, and teaching activities. So provide training for faculty members who want to do integrative courses. You can't expect somebody who is a professional engineering, who's an engineering professional, to be able to teach a course on humanitarian engineering or ethics. How do you provide training for that person? And the third thing is we really need more assessments on the effectiveness of these courses. And we need to be able to really be able to elevate these promising practices and models, because as we move forward in the 21st century with more hyper-specialized education, we're forgetting the value of arts and humanities. And so with that, maybe I'll turn to Laurie. I'll turn to Laurie so she can talk about the report from her perspective and her experience. And let me give you a handoff. You might want to clip this. It's right now.
Okay, so this can go in here.
This might want to go.
This can go there. All right, how's that? Is that good back there? Great. Thank you, Irene, for supporting this work. As you can see, she has a really diverse background, as many of you do in this room. And I know this because life is long, and if you're lucky enough, you're going to have 7 or 8 different career trajectories in your lifetime, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. Not us necessarily, not the older people like me, but your students. Your students are really, everybody's coming here for mines, right? And for, extractive and sustainable practices in mining. And the reality is a lot of your students might start there as their first, right out of the blocks job, but ultimately, life is long, and they're going to take some really interesting turns. And so I do want to thank you for hosting us here today, and I also want to extend an invitation to come down to CU Denver, right downtown, 20 minutes down the road in August, where we'll have the head of the National Academies of Sciences Workforce Services, Tom Rudin, will be hosting a roundtable around these topics of integrative education and what it really means for our students, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what we care about, how we're going to be nimble and flexible with a really changing workforce that we're faced with, and that translates into higher education. So I do want to make a plug for the 4 o'clock panel. Irene does have a suitcase full of these, but they're in our hotel room. Not many, but. So Sandy, where's the 4 o'clock panel if you want to get there early and grab your copy?
Oh,
a few copies. Yeah.
I think it's 202 or 204. Look for me. I'll be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
just a regular classroom. There'll be more
Great.
snacks.
So I want to just talk for about 15 minutes about, kind of why I got into this and my role on the committee, and then really open up maybe the last 30 minutes for, hopefully a lively conversation, how we can help you with what you're doing, share best practices, or at least good practices that are getting better. I kind of hate using the term best practices because it kind of concretizes, and it's always fluid and it's always changing. And thank you for shaking your head. One person agrees with me. So I was invited to the committee in the context of my old position at the University of Michigan. I ran an organization, kind of a wily, young, nimble organization called the Alliance for the Arts and Research Universities. The acronym was A2RU, and the 2 was a little 2, so it was A squared RU, and it was kind of a punny little tag acronym for higher education institutions that were working at this cusp of arts, humanities, ... and everything else. And it was to bring a really strong liberal arts education, a really strong foundation in arts and humanities to everything we're doing, to the wicked problems, to the tricky issues that are facing society, and recognizing that the more diverse we have, the more diverse voices we have at the table, the better solutions we're going to come up with, towards water issues and sustainability issues and all of those issues that are facing your students and that they are going to inherit in the, very, very soon if they haven't already. So now I'm at the College of Arts and Media, right downtown, CU Denver, and there's my dean, Larry Captain. Thank you for coming. And, we say, and I'll just read our mission, we envision a world made smaller and more fully human by the artist's interpretation of the human experience. So when you talk about, what do the arts and humanities have to do with mining, right? I think about, what do the arts and humanities have to do with the city of Denver, right? And so the tagline for our university right now is "See you in the city," and we are considered we are the public urban research university in the state. And with that, we are charged with 3 things: to give our students real-world experiences, to allow for and encourage a diversity of voices, and then to really have a creative exchange. And I'm going to say ... to come up with the best solutions to what we're facing in really the urbanization of our planet. And that goes into extractive and sustainable practices across the globe, and more a global society that we're faced with. So what I want to also talk about is how important it is, the education that you're giving your students and the deep disciplinary knowledge that is really absolutely critical to, if I'm driving across a bridge, I want the best engineer to be building that bridge, right? And I know you've heard that analogy a million times, but it's like every time I drive across a bridge or I hear about a bridge failing, it's like, who was the engineer that designed the bridge, right? So I think about John Maeda, who talks about, he has what he calls his Bermuda quadrilateral. And I don't have a PowerPoint, but I'm just going to kind of talk about where we all sit in this conversation and what we all bring to the table. And John Maeda, he's a designer. He was in industry for 1 million years, and then he took over the helm of RISD, the Rhode Island School of Design, up in Providence, Rhode Island. And now I think he's back in industry. I've kind of lost track of him over the years. So he talks about what we all have to offer. And he says, the arts are to express. The sciences are to explore. Design is to communicate, and engineering is to, what do you think? What would engineering be? Where is your place? Yeah, it's to invent. It's to invent. That was kind of how he, kind of crystallized things. Bring it all together towards really better solutions for us all. All right. And then I also want to say, let's dip in a little bit with my first provocation of why the humanities, why the arts? Why are we here today? Why did you take off really to have lunch with us and to have this really interesting, what I consider a critical conversation? Ronald Daniels, he's the president of Johns Hopkins University. He said, the humanities defines what it means to be alive, those uniquely human qualities. And he describes those human qualities in 4 ways: creativity, imagination, discernment, and the 4th one, which I think is really, really critical to this conversation, says the 4th one, moral reasoning. And I think we've got so many ethical considerations moving forward. With your students and with our students, with the next 10 years, the next 15 years ahead of us. So, on the CU Denver campus, I actually have the pleasure of helping organize kind of an upstart technology and media center. It's called the Comcast Center for Media and Technology. And it's really around bringing the making disciplines together in a sandbox environment for exploration, media and technology. And when we were talking about 22 members writing this report, talk about a sandbox situation. We had somebody from IBM came in, and he talked about the T-shaped student, right? And has everybody heard of the T-shaped student? Raise your hand if you've never heard of the T-shaped student. Okay, several of you have not. So it's kind of a metaphor talking about how important it is that we go deep in our discipline, right? So that linear depth. And then the top being really broad in a 360 version. So you're broad with your perspective and you're deep in your discipline so that you can bring really a cohesive consideration to all of the problems that you're dealing with professionally. So the Comcast Center for Media and Technology, the way, really how it's evolving is that technology piece. Our students are really fluent in technology, right? And so now we're looking at a pie-shaped student, where everybody's coming in bilingual. So they've got computer science, they've got their discipline, and then what our job as educators is really to broaden them as humans. One of the examples that I just want to share with you, just to drill and kind of put a face on this, is at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. They're literally redoing their curriculum in their College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. And they've completely trashed all of their majors, and they're actually aggregating around ways of knowing. And I just want to pull out a few things. It's a new curriculum model. They're beta testing it this year. They rolled it out last year. And they have 4 goals. This is at the University of Virginia, right? This is like one of the top R1s in the country. And it's to prepare their students for engaged citizenship, to equip their students for purposeful vocation, to enable individual flourishing. And the 4th one is to ready them to contribute to society and global common good. Yeah, raise your hand if you're all in. Yeah, exactly. So what are the requirements that they're asking of their students? And again, here's the 4 things they're requiring. That students consider the ethical implications of their commitments in all ways. The ethical implications. That they have the ability to formulate and test empirical questioning and hypotheses. Something we want all of our students to be able to do. The 3rd thing is to engage in the arts as a fundamental way of knowing and being. Yay, yay, the arts. And the 4th one is to understand the breadth of human diversity in this global world that we're living in. So just a few more, I'm going to give you like 2 more provocations, then we're going to open it up here. When Sandy introduced me, you might have like paid attention or not paid attention. I have a lot of degrees in flute playing. So how did I end up as an associate dean for research, collaboration, and innovation? Because it goes back to what I first said, that life is long, and we all need those skills. You know, when we think about, you know, all of the studies that have come out, you know, what are the critical skills that we need to equip our students with? They are critical thinking, right, and collaboration and creativity, the 3 C's. So here I am. I'm living in Colorado. I'm married to a wildlife biologist. My own trajectory is really squirrely. And, you know, I think of this Japanese kind of philosophy. It's called Ikigai. Has anybody ever heard of Ikigai? And the translation, as far as I can see, is a reason for being. And there's a fabulous TED Talk, and it's by Tim Tamashiro, is the one who came up. He actually, one of the big proponents of Ikigai in this country. And he talks about 4 elements to Ikigai, that 4 elements to a reason for being. Do what you love. Do what you're good at. Do what the world needs. And do what you'll be rewarded for. And I think of those 4 things, and I think that is exactly, I mean, can I just package that into my next curriculum, right? Into every course I teach, into every diploma that we give out at our universities. And I'll just close by, you know, the tagline for our university, College of Arts and Media, is turn what you love into what you do. And I think that's what we want for our students, to be engaged. You know, if you looked at some of those things, you know, the role of integrative education and what it does for our students, they're more engaged. Retention is higher. They come up with better solutions. It's all those things that we're talking about. So with that, I'd like to invite my colleague and friend, Irene, back up. And really, I think we've given you probably more information. We've talked way too long. But we have at least a half hour to kind of dip in and answer some questions and really learn about who's in the room, what are you doing, what are you grappling with, what are your challenges, and how collectively can we kind of navigate this really interesting time in higher education. Thank you. I don't know where we want to sit. There's 2 chairs, but that seems a little bit clinical. Yeah. But I don't know.
You can do whatever you want. Oh, yeah. Do you want to do that? We can pull
stand on the chairs if you want. We can stand on the chairs. Yeah, we'll just good. And then we can share this little thing back and forth.
You know,
Are we good now? Are we?
I think we're done with that.
We're done.
Yeah.
All right.
You can turn that